Welcome back to the Explainer. In our last module, we set the stage for big data. Well, now it's time to roll up our sleeves and step right into the engine room. Because if data is the new oil, then SQL is literally the pump. Today, we're going to master the data pull. We're not just going to sit here and memorize syntax. We're going to learn how to think in sets and how to actually converse with a database to extract exactly what you need.
But hey, before we unlock the doors to this massive data facility and start pumping, make sure you have your all-access pass. Hit that subscribe button for SGITMystr right now. Subscribing ensures you never miss out on these insights. Got it? Awesome. Let's get to work.
Okay, let's dive into this. Here is our roadmap for today. We'll start with the core data pipeline, move to connecting the data dots, look at advanced tools of the trade, discuss making your queries fast, and finally finish with scaling up to big data.
Section 1. The core data pipeline.
So, SQL commands are divided into very distinct jobs. Over on the left, we have DDL, or Data Definition Language. Think of this as the blueprints and the scaffolding, right? Your create, alter, and drop commands that define the actual structure of your data tables. But as data analysts, we spend the vast majority of our time over on the right side, DML, or Data Manipulation Language. This includes commands like insert, update, and delete. But the absolute, undisputed king of DML is the select command. That is our primary tool for reading and extracting data.
I like to think of the select statement as assembling the pipes of a giant machine, step by step. Step 1 is select. You tell the database exactly what columns you want. Step 2 is from. You point the machine to the specific table where that data lives. Step 3 is where. This is your filter, ensuring you only pull the rows that meet your specific conditions. And finally, step 4 is order by, which, you guessed it, simply sorts your final output. It's the absolute bread and butter of data extraction. You specify what you want, where it is, and how to filter it.
But let's be real, staring at millions of raw rows isn't always helpful. What if you want to actually summarize the data? Well, that's where aggregations come into play. We can take raw transaction data and use functions like AVG for average salary, sum for total sales, or count distinct for unique users. By pairing these functions with the group by clause, you can seamlessly roll up millions of individual transactions into a single, insightful number broken down by categories. Think like, finding the total sales per region.
So that covers the basics of querying a single table. But let me ask you this. In the real world, how often do you think all the perfect data you need is just sitting there, cleanly contained in one single table? Yeah, almost never. So how exactly do we combine disparate data?
Section 2. Connecting the data dots. To handle multiple sources, it helps to think of joins as Venn diagrams, and this brilliantly illustrates how we merge things. The most common is the inner join, which only returns rows when there is a match in both tables. Then you have your left or right joins. These focus on a primary table. So, for example, a left join keeps all the rows from your left table and only pulls in matched data from the right. If there's no match, it just fills that empty space with nulls. Finally, if you just want absolutely everything from both sides, the whole shebang, you use a full outer join.
Now let's look at a really clever application of this concept called a self-join. Sometimes you literally need to join a table to itself. Imagine an employee table. You want to see an employee's name right next to their manager's name. Because both the employee and the manager are technically employees, they exist in the exact same table. By joining the table to itself, matching the employee's manager ID to the manager's employee ID, you can pull e.name and m.name as manager right side by side. It's an incredibly useful trick whenever you're dealing with hierarchical data.
Another way to connect data is through subqueries. Simply put, this is just a query nested inside another query. You can drop a subquery right into your where clause to filter based on a calculation, like say, finding all employees who earn more than the company average. The inner query calculates that average, and the outer query does the filtering. Quick warning though, be super careful with what we call correlated subqueries. Those depend entirely on the outer query and have to run row by row. While very powerful, they can be notoriously slow and honestly might just make your database administrator cry.
Section 3. Advanced tools of the trade.
Okay, let's step up into the control room now. First up are window functions. Now, standard group by aggregations. Collapse your rows down into a single summary row.
But what if you want to do the calculation while keeping all your original rows completely intact? That's exactly what a window function does. It performs a calculation across a set of table rows related to the current row, and it uses this magic keyword over.
Let's check out the blueprint of this in action. Using ROW number over a partition of departments allows you to assign a unique, sequential integer to each row within that specific department, sorted by salary. So you can instantly rank who makes the most in each department without losing the individual employee records. Or look at the lag function. This lets you look at a previous row's salary right next to the current one. These tools are absolutely invaluable for time series analyses and rankings.
Next, in our advanced toolkit, CTEs, or Common Table Expressions. You create these using the with clause right at the top of your query. Think of a CTE as a temporary named result set that you can reference within a larger query. Instead of writing endless, deeply nested subqueries that become a total nightmare to read, you use CTEs to break your logic into clean, manageable blocks. It makes complex data pipelines significantly easier to read, write, and debug, a real game changer for sure.
Section 4. Making your queries fast.
So now you can write complex queries. But a query that works fine on 100 rows might completely break your database engine when you scale it up to 100 million rows. Optimization is an art form, and it starts with understanding how the database actually looks for things. Imagine searching for a specific topic in a massive textbook by reading every single page. That's a sequential scan. The database scans the whole table, and it is painfully slow. Now imagine using the textbook's appendix to jump straight to the right page. That is an index scan, and it is lightning fast. By reading your database's explain plan, you can see its exact execution strategy. If you see a sequential scan on a 100 million row table, you know immediately you need to add an index.
So the crucial point is keeping your queries running fast and reducing I/O. Just keep this optimization checklist in mind. 1. Filter as early as possible by pushing conditions into your where clause so the database processes less data. 2. Never use select asterisk in production. Actually, always ask for the specific columns you need. 3. Use exists versus in wisely. Exists is usually faster for checking if data is there, while in is better for static lists. And 4. Avoid doing calculations on index columns in your where clause. If you write where year of date equals 2023, the database can't use the date index. Instead, you'd want to use where date between January 1st and December 31st. Makes sense, right?
Section 5. Scaling up to big data.
Now, what happens when we zoom all the way out from a single server? When your data is measured in hundreds of terabytes or even petabytes, standard SQL engines just can't keep up. This is where the global grid comes in, querying data stored in distributed file systems like S3. You basically have two main approaches here. On one side, Apache Hive. Hive translates your SQL into batch processing jobs. It's slower, taking minutes or even hours, but it is built for incredibly massive volumes and heavy, complex transformations. On the other side, you have Presto, which is also known as Trino. Presto is designed for interactive, ad hoc analytics. It doesn't store data itself. It just reads from the source extremely fast. If you need sub-second to minute-long queries on massive data sets across different systems, Presto is absolutely your go-to tool.
And that brings us to the end of our SQL extraction journey. You've mastered select, joins, window functions, optimization, and even big data systems like Hive and Presto. You now have the essential toolkit of a data analyst. But I want to leave you with a provocative thought. Now that you've mastered the data pull and have all this raw information seamlessly flowing at your fingertips, how do we go beyond simple aggregations? How do we build powerful Python models to predict what the data is going to tell us next? Think about that. Practice your SQL queries, and I'll see you in the next explainer.